Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell. Brought to you by
OutdoorTVExperts.com. Everyone is spending more time at home these days, so wouldn't it be nice to watch a game, a movie, or even better, a concert while sitting on your patio or relaxing in your pool? Visit OutdoorTVExperts.com and use the Music Night discount to receive free shipping. OutdoorTVExperts.com, OutdoorTVExperts.com.
Okay, Michael, my part is done. Whether the rest of the show is any good is entirely up to you.
All right, it's time once again for Music Night at the Majestic. With us tonight, Chapel Hart. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Hello!
Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody how you guys came to be, because it's pretty obvious in listening to you, there's a family harmony with you guys.
We were having trouble getting unmuted. So probably a while back, Trea and I started out as a duo, and we were singing on Royal Street in New Orleans. I moved from Poplarville. I lost my job, and so I said, look, if I'm ever gonna be a musician, or if I'm ever gonna pursue music as a career, this is my chance. And so Trea and her sister lived here. And so I came down and we wrote down a list of like 15 songs. We went down to Royal Street. We started playing. Crowds and crowds of people would gather around us. And we were like, oh. And so then it took us a short while. We were out there for only a little bit. And then we started playing. And we started playing at the Mahogany Jazz Hall and the Candlelight Lounge. And we kind of started to get a little fan base, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then a couple years ago, we added my sister Devynn here, and
it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Something like it. and then the rest is just, that's the start of us, right?
Now, did you all start very young?
Yes, we're all cousins, so we grew up. We had a children's choir. It was about a small children's choir with about 50 of our first cousins. And, Danica and I are the same age, so we kind of started out around the same time. And then, life happened. I stopped singing for a while, but Devynn, Danica's little sister, Danica was not just going to let her.
Because initially I didn't really sing much. And so, but Danica, our dad is a preacher, so when he would go off to preach, he would always volunteer Danica to sing, and we have a younger brother, and she was like, well, if I gotta sing, y'all gotta sing too. So she taught us how to like harmonize and stuff like that. So Danica was pretty much my music teacher.
Right.
Well, you mentioned your dad being a preacher. In your vocals, you can definitely hear gospel roots.
Yes, indeed. Look, it's definitely our foundation. It's so funny though, because sometimes people will ask like, so what's your story? And we're like almost typical musician. We grew up in church. Our dad's a preacher. We went out to sing, what everybody in the church thought was the devil's music, and so we had to like fight through that, and it was a whole nonsense, But I mean, I think it really does kind of help shape our sound, and it definitely is the root and foundation of who we are, so.
Well, tell me this. What kinds of devil's music, shall we say, did you find yourself listening to when you were younger? And did those records have the influence on you, or were they like, this is what I was into as a kid, but you kind of outgrew it?
I would definitely say growing up, we had a pretty eclectic background musically. Like after, we've all started in the church, started with gospel music, mm-hmm. But, as we started to get a little older, I got like really heavy into like metal and classic rock and country. And like Danica, she's like diehard country, but like it's kind of, I don't know, kind of country music has always been a part of our life. Mm-hmm. But getting to the age to where, being able to like fully
Right.
embrace it.
I feel like really we all listen to pretty much every genre.
Right.
There was no genre stone unturned.
I think the one thing that is just solid about us is that we just love music. One of the things that when people say, how did you get introduced, or how did you get started in country music? My dad used to take me to he would take me on car rides, and he'd take me on car rides, and he would put on like George Jones, and he'd put on Kenny Rogers, and we would just take the evening and ride. And I think actually it was like a formula. He figured out if I rode long enough, I'd just go to sleep. So that was the best way to get me to sleep as a kid, because I would just stay up at all times of the night
and talk.
So and then I got to the place I got too big too. I got big fast, and so he was like, "You gotta just get up and walk inside." So he had to figure out how to put me to sleep again. So, but overall, just our influence of music just ranges so much. Last thing though, we were in Nashville. We were in an Airbnb. We were getting ready to go to a show, and we were getting ready, and Lady Antebellum just put out their new album. So I was listening to Lady Antebellum, and I walked past the room, and Dev was listening to Tupac, and I walked past, and Trea was getting ready in the bathroom, and she was listening to classical music, and I was like, talk about Chapel Hart, so that's kind of our scale of music.
Well, I'll tell you, your tastes matches exactly what we do here on Music Night. As I've said many, many times, we adhere to Duke Ellington's, rule that there's only two kinds of music, the good kind and the other kind. And so we try to get everything out there. When a friend of mine was complaining that you don't really hear a lot of like traditional country vocals anymore. And I told him, oh yeah, watch this. And I played his single, Jesus and Alcohol, for him. And he was completely blown away, not just by your singing, but the fact that you had Reverend Billy F. Gibbons in there. How did that?
Well, we actually shared an agent. Our agent in Nashville, Jeff Hill, was actually ZZ Top's agent previously. And he had sent them some of our music, and surprisingly, Uncle Billy reached out and he was like, wow, what is this? Like, what can I do to be a part of this? And as the world would have it, I honestly feel like COVID happened just for us, because the world shut down and his schedule opened up, and he said, you know what, girls, I'm on my way.
Wow.
Right. I think it's amazing, because Jeff knows that Billy has this, Billy is all things music, very kind of similar to us. And it was funny. We saw an article where it said there was like caught at a LA convenience store, Snoop Dogg, Billy Gibbons, and Morris Day. I was like, and this is why. And Jeff knows him, and so he was like, he sent him the music first, and he was like, wow, what is this? And then he sent him our picture, and he was like, you are lying. He was like, what in the world? He was like, I gotta help these girls however I can. And he listened to a few more songs, and he just fell in love. And so, we have that relationship, and it just, what do you say? You know what I'm saying?
But I have to say, I was kind of surprised, because like you said, there's not a lot of just real traditional country, I guess. And when we first started going to Nashville, that was one of the first things our agent said. It's like, you guys may be too country for country radio.
Well, you are in a fairly uncompetitive niche at this point. So, but the nice thing, and the people that I had played some of your stuff for, what they immediately noticed was the same thing I did. So you can hear the gospel roots, you can hear the traditional country vocalist influence, and but it's a very soulful delivery that you have. So it's almost like you're paying homage to three forms of music simultaneously, but you can hear the passion that you have for all those styles.
I love that. I think that's just a perfect description. And it's just like, I think that nowadays, like when we go to Nashville or even in talking to a lot of people from there, they're just, you know, a lot of music influencers and, you know, people who've been there and legends, and they just say everything now sounds exactly the same. And I think as people are coming in, everyone's trying to match what the sound is or figure out what that Nashville sound is, and everybody's trying to do that. And I was just like, we just want to do, you know, we want to do what we want to do, and that's why we don't have regular jobs. And so, you know, we want to share the music that we want to share. We want to give our experience through music, and we're so glad that it stretches across different genres, and it feels like, you know, it's the tip of the hat to gospel music, the tip of the hat to rock, the tip of the hat to you know, all these other genres that people can connect to.
And I feel like that's why so many people tell us, I don't typically listen to country music, but I listen to you guys, because they can hear the influence from all different other genres that don't happen like they just happen naturally, I guess you could say. So I feel like that's why a lot of people will say they can relate to a lot of our music. If
you look at our YouTube, we've got a ton of converters. They're like, I think I've been converted. So I'm like, yes, come on.
Well, one of the things that I have always found interesting was that people who are not country listeners per se
gravitate to the really good stuff. You know, the passive listeners, you know, go to the stuff that's very formula, if you will. Now, what's refreshing about you three is the fact that you are the antithesis of a marketing creation where it's okay, well, this person's selling us a lot of records, you know, or selling a lot of records for label A. We got to go get our version of them. And then, like you said, you wind up with music. You could go from one station to the next and it all sounds the same. You know, now getting back to your influences, if we were to look at Trea, I'll start with you. If we were to look at your playlist of the most recent songs that you were listening to, what would we find on that playlist?
Well, before I came over here for this meeting, I was going back and forth because I was helping my daughter build a computer. So we're going back and forth between Tchaikovsky, the Beatles, and System of a Down. And she just discovered Rage Against the Machine, which is also like one of my favorites. And so it was like Tchaikovsky, System of a Down, Rage, and Johnny Cash. And that's been my playlist for like the last hour for today. So it's kind of all over the place.
Just a little bit. No. One of the things I always find interesting, or interesting, if you actually listen to the song structure of metal or, you know, aggressive rock, it is classic.
It's classic. I always say that it's just classical music on steroids, and whenever I explain it that way, because you know, I try to not guide my daughter's musical taste too much, just kind of let her go where she wants. But it's kind of so interesting watching like kind of the same connections being made, because like she'll go from listening to like some Giuseppe Verdi, listening to classical for a long time, and then just make a hard switch to Metallica. And she was like, oh, this kind of sounds like that. And I was like, well, you know what? And I showed her how to like slow down the record player. And she's like, it is like the same little musical exercises that show up in classical music, but it's just sped up with a lot of distortion.
There was an album by Rachel Barton, who's a classical violinist. She did an album called Storming the Citadel, and she did chamber music versions of Metallica, Black Sabbath, you know, and when you hear it in that setting, you can really hear how similar they are. I mean, if Beethoven and Wagner and definitely Mussorgsky were alive now, that's probably what they would be doing. They'd be doing movie soundtracks and then doing some, metal. In all likelihood.
Kind of in the Yngwie Malmsteen vein and like the Dream Theater, and it's like You get it. You get it.
Now, how about you, Danica? What's on your playlist right now?
I have a road playlist that I usually is just they roll their eyes. So I mean, I still like a lot of new stuff. So I think it's got some Carly Pearce, Morgan Wallen, Post Malone, but also has some just Shania Twain. It's got a little bit of old school, a little bit of new school, and so but all up tempo. So once we get on the road, I'm a little extra too. So like they get a full performance all the way to wherever we're going, and mostly on the way back. So every blue moon they can catch me slipping. I might get a nap in, but when I'm not napping, I'm performing.
The best part is free.
Huh?
And the best part is to get on the performance for free.
That's right. They have to pay me though. They do. I like to try to collect on Venmo. I'm like, come on, ladies, that was the best performance of your life.
We pay her no attention.
It's what I end up getting paid.
It's actually quite entertaining to watch. So I kind of wake up every day on a new playlist because however my mood is, that is what I'm going with. Today I had my old school playlist going, so I have a lot of Betty Wright, staple singers, Sam Cooke, all in that vein. And then one day I may have like my sad playlist going if I'm feeling a little down, or I may be listening to Tupac, like she said earlier. You just never know with me.
Okay. Favorite Sam Cooke song?
Bring It Home to Me. For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
When my boy was little, he did not, like most kids, he did not want to go to sleep. So I put together the playlists of the songs that would calm him. And to this day, he is a Sam Cooke fanatic. Sam Cooke, Smokey Robinson. In fact, it was funny. One night, he would not settle down at all. And finally, my wife just looks at me. She goes, take him for a ride so I can get some rest. So I put him in the car. We go for a ride. And this was about the time that Herb Alpert's Whipped Cream and Other Delights re-whipped, when all the different house DJs remixed the songs, from that classic album. And so we're riding along, and Ladyfingers comes on, and he stops. And quiet the whole time of the song. And then when the next song comes on, he's back to just full out screaming. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try something. So I backed it up to that track, Silence. And then there's, two songs on there, just completely quiet him down. And so to this day, I make sure those songs are on the phone and ready to go at any given time.
Right.
Queued up at all times.
So good.
But that's amazing how like even kids, I feel like they have the purest ears, and how sometimes certain melodies or certain songs will just stop them in their tracks, and they're like just mesmerized, like just pure awe and amazement.
Right. It's just like it or you don't like it. You know what I'm saying? I think like we overanalyze. It's like, well, this is good here, but the this and that, and kids are like, nah, don't like it.
Well,
so if you get a kid to say that they like your music, you're doing something right.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, there was one song that worked every time. Nick could be in a full down, meltdown, like almost Exorcist type moment. And all we had to do was start Shake Your Moneymaker, whether the George Thorogood cover or Elmore James. And, he's like 3.5 years old, walking around. It didn't matter where we were. He and I were in a restaurant one night, and he's just singing "Shake Your Moneymaker" as loud as he possibly could. Which people are looking at me going, trying to figure out, okay, how did this happen?
They're like, right, whose kid is this?
Exactly. But of course, my friends are like, you can tell you. Now, do you guys collect records or music?
Yes, I have the weirdest record collection. It's funny because whenever you said the re-whipped, I imagine my mind instantly went to the Green-ish album cover with the girl covered in whipped cream. and like that whole, but it's funny, we went down a very deep like Louis Prima, Xavier Cugat rabbit hole for the longest. But I don't know, I think it's funny because sometimes like I find that like even like kids and my daughter's friends and just random people are drawn to albums, like the album cover is where it all begins. And sometimes you find yourself listening to like the most eclectic stuff just based on the album cover that has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on inside. Like whatever, who was it? It was, might have been, I can't even think of the name now. But I remember one was like the Heavy album because it looks like Schoolhouse Rock cartoons all over, and then there's like this one random Mandrill album that became heavy in the rotation just because there's a big orangutan or whatever on the cover. But I don't know, I think it like kind of just even opens you up to stuff you're not even ready for or expecting, because who knows what they were thinking when they were designing those record covers in the 70s especially.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm not a collector, so per se, but
You're a new collector.
I'm a new collector.
Yes.
I just bought my first 2 records. I got a Pointer Sisters record and I got a Charlie Pride record. So I've been playing those out. I've just been super excited about it. I'm like, I love this.
Which Charlie Pride record was it?
I honestly couldn't even tell you. I saw it in the store because it was like, I wanted a Charlie Pride record and they didn't have like hardly any in the store. And they just had this one, so I was like, you know what? I've got to get it, regardless of what's going on. I have to get it. So that's what I did.
So she fought this little old lady and she pushed her on the ground and was like, my Charlie Pride record.
You got to do what you got to do.
You
There
got
you
to do
go.
what you got to do.
Long story short, when she finds out what the name of it is, she'll tell you.
I'll be waiting.
Right.
Yes, I got you.
How about if you're collecting, Danica? What would be the wall? What's your your collection?
I am not sure. There's so much that first of all, I definitely wanted that for my Christmas on my Santa list. I want Santa to bring me a record player this year. So that's what's on my Christmas list. And but I would love to hear a Patsy Cline record just from front to back on a record player. That would just be my, that would be my Christmas wish. And I could just let that thing play, probably turn it over, let it go again, and I would probably wear it out in like a week, but like just her voice coming across a record player just sounds like
It's like butter.
Yeah.
like
music chocolate, just
dripping all over
yes,
your ears.
yes.
There's something to be said about listening to music from a record player. Like it just sounds like just so real and raw, and like I was listening to this random Ginger Baker record, which I was expecting one thing and it turned out like extremely African.
Oh really?
Yes. And one thing about it is like
escalated quickly.
but like, and it was like I'm in my backyard and you couldn't tell me I wasn't in a jungle somewhere. It was like just the way that it'll transport you.
Well, with your baker, you never know what you're going to get.
Right.
Now, tell me this. Did you go to a lot of concerts in your youth?
Well, I used to go to a lot of concerts. I actually skipped my junior and senior prom because the tickets cost the same as a 3-day pass to the Miller Lite Crawfish Fest, and so we went.
That's the most redneck thing I've ever heard in my life.
Right. So like me and my two friends skipped prom and spent all weekend. And we saw, I was like, oh my God, this is what I need in my life. And like I got to see like Stained and Seether and Papa Roach and like a whole lot of other stuff. And like they used to have a lot of like crawfish fests down on the coast of Mississippi. And it was like, oh my God, it's the first time I ever heard a Trick Pony. And I was like, oh, I love these guys. What is this? I need more. But as I got older, like I worked like backstage at a couple, and then like I don't know, we went to what was that, last week? Mm-hmm. Oh, time flies. So we went to the Lynchburg Music Festival, and it was the first time in a long time that we were like on the other side of it.
Right.
And I kind of don't miss it. After being backstage, it kind of has a different feel.
I think our parents kind of deprived us of concerts and stuff, because I'm thinking and I'm just like,
Well, my parents didn't allow it. I was just...
So, I mean,
Right.
I think Danica and I need to get our concert.
But which is the one you went to? Was it Darius?
Yeah, they had the Boys of Summer tour, something like that. But it was Darius Rucker, Sam Hunt, Chase Rice, and that was my very first concert, and that was literally like a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I was just like, why did my mom and dad not take me to these? Like, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And even being at the Lynchburg Festival last week. But being on the other side it's a little bit different, because now you get to see like how people see you. And so it was like an educational moment. So I was kind of nerding out for a little bit and kind of, yeah, but other than that though, I can always appreciate a great concert and, appreciate what people put into it. It takes a lot, and people don't realize how much it takes to put on a full production show, to make sure everything's running right, the music's right, the lighting's right. And so there's so many things that go to that hour and a half that blows your mind. There's so many things that has to happen correctly or right in order for that to happen. And so it was just amazing to sit back and watch it for, because it's been forever since we've actually watched a concert and not been on stage. So,
but it does, like you say, definitely brings an appreciation like you would not believe. When I first moved to New Orleans, I was like just interning and working with Voodoo Fest, and I realized they work an entire year for 3 days, like an entire year of work, and you need it like down to the second and down to the minute, and you can work all year, and then day number 2, everything goes wrong, but you have to have those contingency plans and everything else ready in case, another fire pops up.
I would lose my mind if I was a concert planner.
Oh my God.
It is absolute chaos. And it was funny because every now and then you have to go to the other side, like, let me take a break and just get away from these crazy people before somebody's face gets bitten off.
Well, I don't think a lot of people realize that when you're performing, you are putting out, investing every emotion you have into conveying what you're feeling in those songs. And if you do that, by the time the show's over, you are exhausted because you are mentally and emotionally drained.
You are 110% right, because let me tell you something. After the show, they're always looking for me because, they don't really have to look far. They know I'm going to be in the bed, already asleep, already changed clothes. Sometimes my makeup will already be off, but after that, I am.
If you're at a meet and greet for Chapel Hart, you will not meet or greet Deb, because she would be dead.
I'll stick around for the meet and greet now.
For about 5 minutes.
If there's somebody you won't meet, it'll be her. But
there's been so many times people were like, I gotta get a picture, we need to get a picture. And we're like, okay, wait, let's find Deb. Yeah. And she's she goes from full glam to sweatpants and just halfway.
It's almost a talent. I'd say it's a talent, the way I can change as quick as I can.
But I literally was just talking to one of the guys who works security for us. He works with us a lot, and he was over the other day, and he was just talking, and I was telling him, and he said, he asked almost a similar question. He was like, is it hard giving so much of yourself to people? He was like, you have to give yourself in the song, and then after the show you have to give yourself to the people who want to talk to you. And I told him, that's one of the most exhausting things. But also, if at the end of a show, at the end of a writer's round, if you don't get back to the car and you're not like,
You didn't do it.
You didn't do it right. You want every show, every opportunity you get to leave yourself with people. Leave it all, because I believe that's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember how you treated them. They're going to remember how the songs touched them. And if all of that experience meets in the middle, then they'll never forget you, and they'll be a fan for life.
And even though it is exhausting, I feel like it's also one of the most rewarding things as well, because you, after the show, like you get a chance to talk to people and hear their stories and how they were touched or moved by our music, and that is just like such a heartwarming feeling.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the reason that we do it. It's like, if you don't, sometimes like you can see the connection when you're on stage. You can see how people like, you know, gravitate to like a particular song or a particular moment. But it's those personal connections that kind of like create lifelong fans, and it kind of makes you want to pour even more into your music and even more into your performances. And like she said, if you're not just spent afterwards, you didn't do it right.
Well, if you look at all the artists who have been able to sustain decades long careers, every one of them has been able to build a rapport with the fans, you know, goes that extra mile for them. Not saying gives everything away, but, you know, they will, you know, do as much as they possibly can with it. That's that key. Because if you can't build a chemistry first, you know, on stage where they see you in person, you know, because initially you're building that bond purely with your vocals, your performance on record, for lack of a better description, your recordings. Then when with that, you get them to like you enough to want to come and see you. And then once they come and see you, now you've got to win them over to where you build that rapport with them to where they feel it. And then once you've done those two things, now you've got a fan base.
That's so true. And it's funny, we always laugh about when we have to leave somewhere, because I talk a little bit and Dev doesn't really talk that much, but like you can guarantee it.
A little bit.
Okay, I talk a little more than a little bit, but but not nearly as much as this one. But and we always laugh and joke about it, but honestly, like that's kind of like the glue that holds it together. Like you have to be able to, like I say, like you have like the best customer service face. Maybe will be places she can be in like an evening gown and someone will walk up to her, "Excuse me, ma'am, how do you find this? Where is this?" Or people will just walk up to her and like pour out their entire life story.
I'm telling you, like
if I have somebody come up to me and they kind of start, I don't just put them off. But I kind of invite Danica to the conversation because I know she can give them the advice, because I'm not good with handling.
It's so crazy though. I mean, and in a sense, I love it, and I think that I have the spirit for it, because you know, to me, I think it means something when somebody walks up to you and they want to share, you know, some of the deepest, sometimes the darkest moments of their life, and they say, you know, "I just wanted to tell you this, and you know, I want to tell you that your music touched me tonight," and you know, and hopefully, I always tell people, look, I have one rule: if you don't cry, I won't cry. So then we're not crying together. And so, but you know, that just means a lot. But like exactly like you were saying, like everything makes a difference. And like I said, it's stuff like that when people are comfortable enough to open up to you, to give you their deepest, darkest, and as an artist, that says a lot. They trust you with the deep things that they hold deep, that probably a lot of times they don't even share with family or friends. And the fact that they would leave that with you, and to say that your song connected to that place, you know, just is one of the reasons that I wanted to continue to be a writer, and I wanted to continue to go down the road that we're on. And like I said, a lot of times you may get crazy looks, and people are like, "Wait, what a great gimmick," and you know, like people just say awful things, but it's so much easier to look over the negative things that people say when you know the mission and the journey that you're on. You know that there's so many people that need to be helped. There's so many people who need to hear what you have to say, and so it makes it all worthwhile.
Well, when the fans come up to you and tell you those things. That is the absolute biggest compliment you could possibly get.
That's right.
So, well, on that note, you are actually reached our minute, believe it or not.
No.
Oh,
Don't leave us.
you went to say Tom, you're having fun.
This means you guys didn't have to come back.
Yes. Absolutely.
For several 30-minute segments.
Yes. For 5 30-minute segments in a row.
Just put it to be continued across the bottom.
Right.
Well, tell you what, when we'll have the viewing party, going during the show, hopefully you ladies can join us.
Yes, we would love to. We would love to. Send us an invite and we'll be there.
Sounds great. Well, tell you what, is there anything else you want to make sure that the viewer hear from you?
I have one thing I want to say. Make sure that you guys, so right now we're sitting at number 2 on the CMT 12-pack countdown, and we need you guys to go to CMT12pack.com and vote for
Yes.
Chapel Hart, Jesus and Alcohol, so we can get that number 1 spot.
Yes, and there's no limit, so vote as many times as
Yes.
your little thumbs can handle.
Help us independent artists with no label, no backing, get to number 1. That's our goal. We hope that we can get to number 1. And but even like, I don't know, it still says a lot to be number 2 on CMT, and it does a lot for us, and shows that our hard work isn't going in vain, and we absolutely appreciate everybody who goes and votes. So thank you all in advance for voting, and keep voting. Vote.
All right. On that note, we're going to wrap this one up. Ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this music night.
Thank you for having
so
us.
much.
And I'm going to hold you coming back.
All right.
All right, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Remember, you can see the video on Facebook at Music Night page, YouTube channel, and at musicnight.net. And make sure you go to chapelhart.com so you can hear all the music we talked about on the show tonight. With that, everybody, have a good night.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking.